Hello again, 240. In this video, I will go over a topic in Chapter 9, America's Great Dilemma, and we will be talking about Jack Roosevelt Robinson, baseball executive Branch Rickey stunned the baseball world on October 23, 1945, when he announced that he had signed Jack Roosevelt Robinson to a Brooklyn Dodgers minor league contract. When the 26-year-old Robinson appeared the following April in a Montreal Royals uniform, that was their main minor league club in those days, a new era had arrived. Rickey's bold action capped a growing movement to challenge the unwritten gentleman's agreement that had kept African Americans out of organized baseball since 1885. Moses Fleetwood Walker was actually the first African American ball player in 1881. The black press, led by the Chicago Defender and the Baltimore Afro-American, were outspoken in the demand for change. Prominent black sports journalists such as Wendell Smith and Steve Lacy repeatedly argued that the top players in the Negro Leagues would elevate the quality of play in organized baseball. Such leading white journalists such as syndicated New York columnists Ed Sullivan and Damon Runyon joined them in their crusade, and later Sullivan will have a popular variety TV show on CBS every Sunday night. Additionally, such influential writers as Jimmy Powers of the New York Daily News, Shirley Povich of the Washington Post, Westbrook Pegler of the Chicago Tribune, and Dave Egan of the Boston Record weighed in on the issue. Despite this pressure, Commissioner Kennesaw Landis adamantly opposed lifting the ban, issuing instead a disingenuous statement: "Each club is entirely free to employ Negro players." He privately hoped that the owners would maintain the racial status quo. As the Second World War neared its conclusion, pressure against the long-standing gentleman's agreement mounted. As you read earlier in this chapter, Gunnar Myrdal's An American Dilemma had moved public opinion, especially among the educated classes, toward a recognition that the United States could not maintain its traditional racial patterns. Rickey was very much aware of shifting public opinion. In early 1945, baseball's new commissioner, Albert Happy Chandler, created a committee on baseball integration, but because of the hostile reaction by New York Yankees owner and general manager Larry MacPhail, the group never met. New York Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia appointed a committee to explore the issue, which pushed special pressure upon the three major league teams located in the nation's largest city. In the spring of 1945, New York sports writer Joe Bostic brought two African American players to the gates of the Dodgers spring training camp and demanded that they be given a tryout, but to no avail. The resulting headlines, however, drove home his message. That same spring, the Boston Red Sox gave highly publicized tryouts to Jackie Robinson, Marvin Williams, and Sam Jethro at Fenway Park because of political pressure from Councilman Isidore Muchnick. "I'm telling you," he later recalled, "you never saw anybody hit the wall the way Robinson did that day. The Green Monster in Fenway Park. Bang, 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 he rattled it." Afterwards, the Red Sox chief scout, Hugh Duffy, candidly admitted that the tryout had been only for show when he ruefully said of Robinson, "What a ball player. Too bad he's the wrong color." And once again, the Sox mix out on a player. We saw that before. While all this public posturing was taking place, Rickey stealthily moved forward with his plan to put an African American in a Brooklyn uniform. He had left St. Louis, the Cardinals, to assume control of the Dodgers in 1942 and was determined to lay the foundation of a competitive team. Rickey's decision to sign Robinson grew out of a multiplicity of motives. Rickey's social consciousness, inculcated in him as a youth by his pious Methodist parents, clearly had been elevated by the growing pressure for reform. But he also wanted to tap a new pool of major league talent to help make the Dodgers a perennial pennant contender. At this time, Robinson was well established as a star infielder with the Kansas City Monarchs of the Negro Leagues after receiving a medical discharge from the Army. When he was summoned to Rickey's office on August 15, 1945, he assumed he was going to be offered a contract with a new African American team Rickey had announced he was forming, the Brooklyn Brown Dodgers. Ricky had cleverly covered his tracks. He had no intention of actually putting a Brown Dodgers team on the field, but the concept gave his scouts cover as they searched for the right candidate for what Jules Tigel has called baseball's great experiment. Ricky wanted not only a player with undisputed major league talent, but also someone who had the personal traits to inspire support from the African American community, overcome well-known prejudices held by some Dodgers player, and act as a role model, a family man and citizen who would appeal to white fans. Robinson met Ricky's criteria. He had lettered in 4 sports at UCLA, the University of California at Los Angeles, and would have graduated had he not departed for military duty in 1942. He had been a consensus All-American halfback and had led the basketball team in scoring. And there he is on a football tops card, and this is from the Beckett blog. Beckett is a famous card collector's magazine, and this is really a tops card, as I mentioned. There he is on the basketball team. This is from keywordsuggest.org gallery, 111559.hotmail. Robinson led the Pacific Coast Conference in scoring twice. And during the spring, he played baseball and ran track, sometimes on the same day. There he is in his baseball uniform and his track. Robinson won the NCAA track meet in the broad jump. The man was a tremendously talented athlete. During his secret meeting with Ricky, Robinson was subjected to a combination 3-hour lecture and grilling by a seasoned baseball man who loved to quote the Bible and Shakespeare. Ricky warned Robinson that he would be the target of relentless scrutiny and verbal attacks and would face intimidating beanball pitches and hostile base runners with flashing spikes. Ricky told him that he would have to have enough guts not to fight back when the inevitable physical or verbal assaults came. If he could not maintain his composure, he would not succeed. In his emotional commentary, Ricky emphasized that turning the other cheek would be necessary. Above all, Robinson would have to produce on the field. You've got to do this job with base hits, stolen bases, and fielding ground balls, Jackie. Ricky's longtime rival, Yankees owner and general manager Larry McPhail predicted that if large numbers of African Americans came to see Robinson play, they would drive away white fans and produce a severe drop in ticket sales. He announced bluntly, "I have no hesitancy in saying that the Yankees have no intention of signing Negro players," and issued an internal memorandum to other team owners that criticized Ricky for exerting tremendous pressures on the whole structure of professional baseball. On the contrary, this elevated the sport again. Throughout the 1950s, baseball boomed in popularity. The guy was dead wrong. After an exceptional minor league season in 1946 with Montreal, Robinson was elevated to the parent team. And for a time in spring training, a handful of veteran Dodgers with Southern roots, led by star center fielder Dixie Walker, talked variously about requesting trades, a boycott, or a strike. The rumored protests failed to materialize in part because of the support Robinson received from Kentucky native shortstop Pee Wee Reese, and adamant stands taken by manager Leo Durocher and Ricky. Nonetheless, it was a tense locker room into which the rookie walked, and we will conclude Jackie in part 2.